Welcome to today's WEL Talk Challenge the Change series brought to you by Women's Educators League. We have here with us today Ms. Maitri Aroon from Gambia, West Africa. And we have Dr. K.R. Maalathi, the founder of Women Educators League. Some of you are new here, so let me just tell you more about why Women Educators League was conceptualized. Because it was conceptualized with a vision to bring women educators from around the world, thought leaders, game changers, teachers who are tirelessly working in their corners in different pockets of the world to make education better. We wanted to form a clutch where we can come together to think, analyze, innovate, debate, and bring solutions that would create a better tomorrow for children around the world. So on that topic, we have Ms. Maitri with us. Ms. Maitri is a leader. She has a strong track record of leading large teams in education. She leads and trains teams of teachers with a focus of enhancing learning outcomes of children. She is currently the National Program Coordinator, spearheading a large team in planning, designing learning materials for young Gambian community educators for an after-school support program. He heads the program team of effective interventions SCORE Gambia research project, which is in partnership with the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine and Gambia's Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education. She's co-authored a research paper published in the prestigious Journal of Development Economics titled "How Much Can We Remedy Very Low-Level Learnings in Rural Parts of Low-Income Countries?" She is also a Cambridge certified program leader who pioneered the professional development qualifications in Gambia on behalf of the University of Cambridge, UK. Welcome to today's session, Ms. Maitri.
Thank you, Pavittra.
We're very happy to have you with us today to explore a topic in a country I'm sure not many would have heard of, Gambia, which has a very interesting locations, tucked in between Senegal. A small pocket in the world. So let me begin, by asking you about how Gambia is and how the education system is there. Is it true that the education system is largely influenced by, by the British education schooling system?
Yes, it is. Yeah, can I say?
Yes.
Fun fact, I want to start the fun fact with Gambia. Gambia is the smallest country in mainland Africa. And the fun fact is it's surrounded by a francophone country. Senegal speaks French. And Gambia is a small river, and the land surrounding the river is Gambia. So that's an English colony inside a French colony. It's very interesting how we remained an English colony from the British rule for so many years. So yes, it's largely influenced by British, but just like as in India, people speak in English and they have their national languages. Very beautiful country with rivers and beaches, and I request everybody to come and visit it once in their lifetime because it changed the notion about the Africa picture you have. And when you come here, you learn so many things. I think I've been in Gambia for almost 20 years now. People in India call me Gambian. People in Gambia call me Indian, so I don't know what to call myself, but I love the country, and that's the reason why I'm here. Coming back to the system of education, they have 12 years of school, just like the countries. They have ECD, they have basic cycle education, which comprises of the lower basic and the upper basic. So till grade 1 to 7 is the lower basic, 1 to 6, 7 to 9 is the upper basic. And after that is a senior secondary school, and they have an examination called from West African examination, which when the children clear, they can go to the university. There's one university in Gambia. Though the area of Gambia is around, it's a very small area, the population density is quite high. It's highly densely populated. So we can compare it to nations like Qatar, where the population is that much. And Gambia is, because it's divided across the river. So region 1, region 2, region 3, and region 4. And the capital is near the sea, the part of Africa. That's one thing. The interesting part, which many people do not know, is which will be interesting for educators around the world, is they have the formal education and they have the informal education. Gambia is predominantly a Muslim country. So parents want to want their children to go through the informal education, which is called daras or madrasas or majlis. They've got different names. Dara is the preliminary. Basically, they teach Quran. Okay, that's what they do. So when these children go to school after the Quranic education, it takes a different span, and parents prefer them to send to school after the Quranic education. Now,
but isn't it interesting that the official age where for starting school there is same as is in Scotland, 7 years.
7 years.
When they start school. So you must have a private preschool probably going around, a mix of.
The reason why it's 7 years is because parents want the children in the initial years to finish the Quranic education and then come to formal education, as they call it. That's why and the starting year is not exactly 7. It ranges from 4 to 12. That's the interesting part. I'll tell you why it's interesting. Because some parents don't want the children to do both, the Quranic and the they prefer the child to finish the Quranic education and then come to the formal education. So when that happens, there are some children who are even 12 years old, they come in. And that's where the ministry was trying to enroll all children in school on a drive, saying, come and join school, come and join school. It did not work. So they came up with a very interesting system, and they said, okay, now the Quranic system, if you teach English and math, we can join together and do a teaching, So they were called identified madrasas. That means they teach Quran and they also teach English and math. Then but still parents said, no, we want them to learn the Quran first and then come to. So ministry accommodated children of all ages, irrespective of whether they are 7, even 12 years, a child can join grade 1. So when you go to a class of grade 1, it's so interesting to see the varied age. Now, what happens is, though the child is older, it's very difficult in terms of teaching and children. The multi-grade system works very well here. Definitely. But they're forced to do a multi-grade because initially when they said no, when they fixed an age limit, the enrollment ratio was very low. If you see the Gambia statistic, the enrollment ratio is around 82%, which is excellent. They've done extremely well in terms of gross enrollment ratio. And the reason why they did well is because they were accommodative. Now, a child who's even 12 years or 7 years can come to grade 1, but he need not pass grade 1, 2, 3, 4. After the initial few months, they will do an assessment, and if the child is able to do well, and usually children who attend a strict Dara, they do pretty well in terms of, they're quick in learning grade 1 concepts. And an assessment is done, and the child is then moved to the respective age and the ability.
That is leading me to one very interesting. Okay, so my question is, when you have such children in the class, when you have the multi-level children in the class, that's going to be pretty challenging for the teacher. So what is the size of the class, and then how do they accommodate?
It's very challenging, let me tell you. It's a struggle. It's not perfect. I wouldn't say it's perfect. It is a struggle because when you have but all of them who have attended Dara or Madrasa, the Quranic education, it's in itself is a multi-grade system where, a Quranic teacher will not have great, levels of classrooms. And
is this the same across all income levels, Ms. Maitri? Is it the same across all income levels, or do you find this trend more in parents who are lower middle?
It's more in the rural parts, and traditionally, in the region 1 and 2, where people are more, FA and economic.
A little more contemporary, modern.
Yeah. So this multi-grade Gambia predominantly has a lot of government schools. There are very less private schools, and there are very less international schools. We have around 6 to 10 international schools in the city region 1 and 2. For the population, it's quite a large number, but that's it. We don't have an IB school. We only have IGCSE curriculum. We have the French curriculum because Francophone country nearby, French is spoken in most states and countries in Africa. And we also have the Montessori. We don't have an IB school. We have one US curriculum school. So if you see the elite population of the economically well-to-do tend to move towards the city in the capital, and they go through the regular Cambridge, schools. And there are private schools also in Gambia and the region 1 and 2. But as we go interior towards Gambia, there are only public schools and a few private schools, and we call it government aided schools where they do. So the reason why we are having a good enrollment ratio was when this madrasa, they were trying to accommodate the informal education and how we can work together rather than, saying no, don't choose this or that. So that's my, at the end of the talk, if anybody can take anything out of this, is in this COVID times when we are struggling with online, we should give options to the parents and children. And giving options is a lot of work for educators like us, schools, but it is possible. It's not possible. We shouldn't stick to our olden ways of education. That's my point of view.
Thank you for that. But when you were speaking about the gap in thought process between urban and rural families, or the,
Yes.
the population who are there,
Yes.
there's also an interesting fact which I came across, that it's still traditional in the sense, because boys are preferred to have more education than girls, and the enrollment ratio for girls in not just lower primary or basic, but as they go up to secondary or higher, drastically goes down. And even further is the percentage of children who actually move on to university level of education.
Yes, it is.
It's still
yes, it is. That's a fact, because as you know, till grade 6, the enrollment ratio, there's a very minimum disparity between boys and girls in Gambia. Very minimum. But after grade 6, the disparity increases. That's reason because girls want to get married soon. The cultural setup of the country, and and also the distance between schools. It's not safe to send children, the upper basic schools are lower, there's a little lesser in number. So children have to travel a longer distance to go to the upper basic. So a lot of other factors, cultural factors, distance factors, which lead to this. But culturally, the difference between, there is no gender disparity for parents. The parents don't send them to school just because of fear of distance, fear of, thing. But women are given a lot of importance and respect in Gambia. That's what I want to try to say.
All right. This brings me back to women in terms of educators. So do you think how is the ratio of teachers, men versus women? Who do you think is more?
That's a very hard question, and you have an equal number. I think because women are very interesting fact in Gambia is we have a university, and the oldest college was teacher training college, right? So everybody who's working in Gambia has undergone a teacher training. If it's not a degree course, but it's a certificate course. So even if you see ministers, anybody, they will say, "Oh, I was a teacher once," because teacher training college was the stepping stone for a degree course. So there are a lot of men, but women naturally, because of the tendency of nurturing, they try to stay on with the teaching. But you wouldn't say that there is a large group of women. No, men are equally teaching in Gambia, and they're doing well.
Unlike the different countries, where we get to hear that, more number of female teachers getting,
Exactly. Whereas this is not the case. The reason being the universities that offer vocational, and very few men go into, there are not many choices for the high school children who finish high school. So the elite ones always tend to go towards teaching. So there are a lot of men and women, especially in our program where we have around 600 teachers. You'll be surprised if I tell you men are more. It's not even 50-50, sometimes men are more, sometimes. And it's same with the hospital and health industry in Gambia. Male nurses are more in compared to the female. It's very interesting.
It's definitely interesting. So does it imply the pay is quite good if you're a teacher in Gambia?
Uh, Economically, Gambia is struggling. I wouldn't say the pay is quite good. Obviously, the private schools
Pay better. Naturally, as it is with all developing
because of
countries,
the
yes.
because of the facilities and obviously the obvious factors. Pay is comparatively good
Okay.
when you compare it with vocational trained laborers and all that.
No,
Yes,
because even here in the UK, it is quite surprising because people, even UK and US, people who consider to be quite economically prosperous. But when it comes to teachers' pay, both in when we're talking about public schools, it is definitely much lower
yes, that's
compared
true.
to a choice an individual would make for another career choice. I'm talking in terms of me, even at least being even taking another vocational job like an electrician or a plumber, they
Exactly.
definitely earn much more than a
More
teacher does.
than,
Yeah.
Gambia is
So,
predominantly an agricultural country,
all
so
right.
it relies more on tourism and agriculture a lot. So when you compare it, teachers' pay is very good, and the Ministry of Education is the only, I should say, I can use the word only because they have a very structured way of raising the pays of. And it's a very organized system in Gambia, which everyone should be proud of. Many Gambians don't know it. We when we work with the ministry, we know this fact. It's beautifully
That
structured.
brings me to another interesting question, Ms. Maitri, because when you say that, tourism and agriculture, so does it mean that your curriculum focuses, what does it focus on? Does it focus on vocational preparing children, or does it again,
Yeah,
the
like what would the national curriculum goals of the government be to
Yeah. So the upper basic, or when we call it, when the children finish the the lower basic and upper basic from 9 from 9 to 12, that's when they specialize, right? So they have the whole of West Africa follows a similar curriculum. Gambia doesn't have its own
curriculum
curriculum
goals? I
because at
understand.
the end
Okay.
of grade 12, they take an examination which is taken by the neighboring countries like Ghana, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Liberia. So all West African countries follow a similar curriculum, and agriculture is part of it. And now they're trying to revive. As I'm speaking to you now, the curriculum department is now talking to add more subjects. But yes, agriculture, it's the basic sciences, agriculture. And we don't have, but we do have a lot of hospital and courses or certificate courses after they finish school, because the University of Gambia is only one and it cannot cater to all these students. We have small, diploma and certificate courses like as in UK. Yeah.
That's great. And in public schools, I'm sure in private schools there must be provisions, but in public schools, are they usually accommodative of children with um, different or special education needs?
Needs, yeah. We don't have a very advanced special needs curriculum or a set of special needs educators, but there is a directorate in Gambia which is called the Special Needs Unit, where they go and train veteran teachers who in turn go and teach teachers basic of how to do, but we don't have a structured, special needs. But there is a
But it
special.
does come across, but teachers are aware of it in their teacher training
Yes,
programs.
yes,
They are made
yes,
it.
yes. They are aware of it, but not equipped fully, I should say. Yeah.
Fantastic. So, how has pandemic impacted school education, both in public and private schools?
Yeah. So private schools immediately went to online
Online.
education. And you're right. So, as they followed the world to whatever they followed. And mind you, Gambia is struggling with power, electricity, and access to
And
technology.
internet network access, yes, definitely.
It's a very tough time. So online was practically impossible in the rural aspect of it. So the government schools came up with the strategy of using televisions and radios. Interesting.
All right.
They had 24/7 a channel with just classes going on, and radio with teachers teaching. And what amazed me is, instead of saying we don't have the technology, they used
What was available?
That's the beauty in Gambia. So in urban area where there's no mobile phones, no thing, instead of saying we don't have it, they said, okay, what do you have? You have TV? Okay, now let's have a 24 hours teaching channel. So a grade 1 to 9 child can turn on the TV at any point of time, and they would just be listening to some teachers. Some kind of learning would happen, and the ministry encouraged parents to just listen to the radio for children to, see the TV and do things, and very positive.
I heard this happened in another part of, Africa is such a huge continent with such diverse needs. And I heard this happened, another government also resorted to this. But there were equal struggles when it came to assessments and promotions. Because,
Yes.
so any idea how they are planning to handle this?
Yes. So
because through TV you can teach, but how do you think it's struggle for teachers when it comes to that?
It is a struggle, and what happened was, because our lockdown period was very short, we resumed in October. From March to October is when. From March to October, we had the lockdown, and government, in partnership with UNICEF, World Bank, and other partners, immediately made sure that the schools should be open, because there is no point in doing this for a long time. So 7th grade and the higher classes open gradually, and immediately we open. Now, when you open, let me tell you, a classroom can have around 90 children, 45 children. It's a large number. So now what ministry did was to work around the strategy that, yes, children have to come to school. So let us alternate. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, divide them into groups, they have something called morning sessions, afternoons, so many strategies. And it was not one size fits all. Again, I'm telling you, this is something that I like about Gambia model, and I'm going to keep repeating. In Gambia, we don't say, okay, this is what should be done, everybody do this. No. Region 1 will do this school will do this, the head teacher and the teachers will sit together and come up with a strategy. You will put and suggest to the ministry. It was a very collaborative work, and they were monitored. And after the children, attended these classes in groups, and what the government could do, and the only thing that they could do was sanitize the classrooms, clean the classrooms, make sure every school had hands to, all those kind of things, and masks. And that's all they could do, because they can't do more than that. So they did that and told the schools to come up with strategies to divide the number of children or make them seated in such a way that, and the curriculum also had to be followed. So they tweaked the curriculum a little bit, and they were able to do it. So I think it went
they
on.
Have managed it quite well. It does look like, yes. Despite the shortcomings, they seem to have managed it quite well.
I like the positive mindset of people here, We sit down and complain a lot. You come to Gambia, you will never complain. You'll just be happy with what you have, and that's the best part.
I think that sounds lovely. I think all of us could do more with contentment with what we have. That is talking about that. So, is it are people more receptive to other curriculums, or are they happy with the curriculum?
Cambridge, Yes, I've told you all the good part. Now comes to the the little improvement part. I will call it, not bad.
Drawbacks. Let's talk about drawbacks.
No, not drawback. Things to be improved a little bit more. Okay.
Yeah, so I like it.
If we look at that, because of the drive of making children come to school, the focus of the government and everybody is more children should attend.
To get them to school, yes.
So in that enrollment drive, what happened? The quality of teaching and learning somewhere tapered down, and capered. So what happened? Children were going to school, yes, but the ratio of teacher student was high. The quality of learning, teacher training, somewhere it diluted. So people in Gambia, if they believe that if you want very good quality of learning, and if your children have to go abroad, you have to put them in private schools or international schools. And if you're in Gambia, you can do very well. You take a West African international school examination, and then you can go either to a neighboring country or abroad, so depending on this. So the quality of learning is the key issue, and that's where teacher training comes in. So they have a national education policy in Gambia, which just got over. Now we are into a 2015-2030 education policy. And in current educational policy, we are focusing on quality. That's the key area, and we want to improve quality. Training, teachers, training, quality, learning outcomes. That's our target.
How is the teacher training program? How many years of teacher training do you give them?
They don't have a BA degree. There's no degree for education here. They have a certificate program called PTC, Primary Teacher Certificate. So anybody who finishes school and goes to the college can, in a few years, can get the certificate. And anybody who's interested, they have a diploma, higher teacher certificate program. So they call it PTC and HTC. Anybody who's done HTC can teach higher grades. Anybody who's done PTC can do the primary grades. That's how the structure is. So because of the short span of the certificate and the diploma program, there is not, pedagogy is a big issue here, they just learn basic competencies of English and math and science or whatever they want to learn. But pedagogy part of it is a challenge. So what Gambia government is doing right now is, okay, because there's a shortage of teachers, the children enrollment is really high and the teachers are really in short. So they post the teachers, then they train them. After once they are employed, annual trainings, they keep to improve the quality of learning.
Yes. So, to wrap up, it would be good if you can, give us a perspective on the rationale behind your research paper.
Yes.
And what was the outcome of it?
Of the results, yes. We did a research program. We wanted to try something new. We wanted to improve the learning outcomes of children, and we knew that the teachers were in short. So we can't use the teachers. So what do? It was a rural project. Taking up somebody from the urban to rural doesn't work also. So we went to every village, identified people who had finished school and who are in the village working in the farms or whatever they were doing, small businesses in the village. And we tried out a new system where we said, okay, you can't train a 12th grader to become a teacher, right? So that's practically impossible. But we said, we are going to give you lesson plans. Okay. When I say lesson plans, we write everything in it. Stand up, say good morning, children, group the children. It's like I call it the Bible or the Quran of effective intervention. So we gave every teacher, every community educator a book to follow, a guideline to follow. So today, this is what I'm going to teach. This is what's all, and our training was basically to follow the lesson plan. That's what we did, because you can't expect a high school, somebody with just 12th grade to think of how to write a lesson plan. And there's a very interesting study in which I read, which said that in recent years in teaching, you don't need to be subject expert to teach. You just have to have the ability, the pedagogy of how to teach. If a teacher is absent, for example, if you have the lesson plan of the teacher who's for example, math, the math teacher is absent, a science teacher can look at the math teacher's lesson plan and go and teach. Okay, so this is a very interesting article. So that means, I'm not saying that teachers should not have the subject expertise. They should have a basic subject expertise, but pedagogy overpowers the subject competency knowledge that once. So
it's very interesting, Ms. Maitri, because I think around 5-6 years back, Dr. Maalathi and even I was fortunate enough to be involved in a project. We worked on an early years program, designed, because in India there tends to be very poor training for early years educators.
Exactly.
Not talking about in urban, but in a rural areas.
Rural setups,
So Dr. Maalathi actually came up with a program very similar. I'm not sure how it's resounding across the world, a very identical concept. So we found that it to be very effective in terms of how it improved not just the teachers, because sometimes teachers themselves have limitations.
Exactly.
Because they have limited exposure, and I don't think there are avenues for professional development as it is, because in for rural teachers or someone who comes in, say, from a private school, So
Mhm.
you have a lot of advantages and disadvantages, from where you
Exactly.
come from. So I think
Exactly.
it definitely makes sense, and it was a great area for you to focus on. So
That's what we
wonderful.
focused, and it was successful. So we gave them these guidelines, and the teachers went and they taught, and we found a 40% increase of learning outcomes from the control to the intervention, and the ministry was so happy. They said, because they don't need teachers, right? We just have to train them, but our focus is on training and monitoring is also key, and we
Yes.
identified a few. You see, classroom management is something that you can't write in a book and give.
Yeah.
Child is shouting, what do you do? So we posted one teacher for around 6 to 7 community educators who will be moving around and hand holding the teacher on classroom management. And you do need a teacher, yes.
Yes.
So these but a few teachers who can monitor can help anybody. Anybody can teach is my motto. I strongly believe in it, and I know for sure. I've when out of at the end of this project, I've it has been proven that even a ninth grade girl, small young girl who could not complete her school, is now an excellent teacher in Gambia. Thanks to the training, thanks to the monitoring. It's a team effort. No one can take credit, but it is a model which is doable, and it's not. We did it in Gambia, so we published the paper in. So any rural part or any rural country, we feel that if training is done, it can do. And that's when we came to the international schools, and we found the same thing, that there was no teacher training. And there is in school workshops that happen in schools, but that's not enough, and teachers from various backgrounds come in. And I said, okay, let's start a pedagogic development course. Thanks to Cambridge, who agreed to the online course. Thanks to Sibek International School, as the first international school to say, okay, let's do it. It takes a Cambridge school
It
to
definitely, yeah. It has to have a. They also need to, have a pioneering mindset to go
effect.
ahead.
And I think we started in January 2019, and 2 years we've trained around 50 to 46 teachers who are now certified online. And mind you, when we started in 2019, Ms. Malathi, I don't know if you know about the CIDDT and CITT. Before it was manual, now it's become online. Can you imagine, when I started, this e-portfolios came up, where UK started telling, now we want you to submit the evidence online. And that was a struggle in itself, because we had to train the teachers how to use
Yeah.
computer rather than training them how to the pedagogy.
Yeah.
So it's very challenging. I think even in India, now I think everybody has to submit online. And it's so interesting that they started it a year before the COVID. Now with COVID, what they're trying to do is get evidence of teaching and online from the all, and it's online. It's amazing how the world is changing, and teachers have to be equipped. They have to learn continuously. That's something that one has to do: continuous learning.
Yeah, excellent. Really happy.
Uh, I think we can now throw it open for questions for an interactive session.
Yeah.
Before we could open, Pavitra, thank you so much. I have something to ask her. Maitri, tell us, from a Chennai girl to, now Gambia leading
Gambia.
teacher trainer. Your teacher is over here who is so proud of you, who says that Sumati is here.
Sumati ma'am.
She's so excited to say that I'm so proud of you here, seeing on this pedestal. So tell us about the journey, and then definitely there must be some inspiration which has gone inside you, and then
Yeah.
interaction today. Many of them will get inspired. So how is it that from normal school teacher now somebody who studied in the Indian board education, and then
Exactly.
here and then moved on, adapted yourself well, now heading a Cambridge program. How is
That's
that?
true. Thank you so much. I want to tell hi to Sumati ma'am. Thanks to wonderful professors like her. We were so naughty and notorious. I'm glad she remembers me. And thanks to wonderful professors and mentors. I've had very good set of mentors throughout my life. I chose teaching. I did my biochemistry. I didn't want to get into the medical line, and I chose teaching as my profession. I'm very passionate about teaching right at the age of, early when I finished my undergraduation. And I worked for a few years in India, and I moved with my husband to Gambia after marriage and a child. So and I joined a school in Gambia, and that's when, when I was in Gambia, I used to say, oh, Indian system is so good. And when I'm in India, I'll say, oh, Gambian system is very good. And then I moved briefly back to India for after 8 years in Gambia, I moved back to India. And then again, I moved back, which was when I really realized there's so much of scope of improvement in both the countries. There's something that is lacking, which is teacher training. And that's when I did my CIDT in India in that short, brief period. Miss Meenakshi of Wales, she was my mentor, and she's a very good mentor. And from there, and then I realized the importance of training teachers. So the moment I understood how training, because teachers were outdated when I was in, when you're abroad, you think, oh, you leave a place and you think it's still like that. But when I went back and I realized India also needs a lot of teacher training, especially with Cambridge schools and IB and the advanced curriculum. The teachers are still in the olden way methodology of teaching. And that's when it hits you hard and said, okay, then I want to do something, different. And then when Gambia called me for this program, I said, I'm going to try this new system of giving a pedagogy, a lesson plan to a teacher who is not qualified. I am against this system of employing teachers who are only B.Ed. It doesn't matter. Your degree doesn't matter. Your background doesn't matter. All it matters is once you become a teacher out of your passion, you continuously train yourself and you can reach, and that's this constant urge of training teachers has been there from India, from Gambia, and I continue to do so. And I'm sure I'm really passionate about teacher training, and I want to do that in a large levels.
Excellent.
That's how it is.
A big thank you to Ms. Maitri for your time, for your purely positive thoughts on the situation which is there and what could be done. I think that's the Gambian in you talking out.
Exactly.
Happy Gambian talking out. We've learned one thing which you've infected all of us is with the positive attitude of how optimistic educators should be and how we should work around a problem. And find a solution, because that's what educators should do. Look out for the children.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Maalathi. Such a pleasure meeting you after I heard so much about you. And now I know why the teachers you work around are so happy with you. I can feel the aura of the thing. We will be in touch. We will talk more. A special thanks to Pavittra for keeping the whole conversation about Gambia, because many people think Africa is one place and South Africa is the only place I know. Even my family, I'm tired of telling them I'm not from South Africa. It's not Zambia, it's not Zimbabwe, it's not Kenya, because those are the few places that they know. And I think Africa is like one place. So thank you, Pavittra, for specifying I'm not from South Africa. It's Gambia and West Africa. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure talking with you, Maitri. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's such pleasure having you here. And we look forward with women educators as we do quite a lot of things, activities with women educators across the globe. Now we have our office opened in London, and then where Pavitra is heading the women educators from the European and the England, and then in and around England. I think this is the time for us to connect and then do more. I always believe we are here, we have received so much from this planet, and it is time for us to give back something before we leave.
Exactly.
Surrounding happening around us. So wishing everybody a very, very safe quarantine at this moment. Stay safe, everybody. Be strong. Everything happening for a reason. The reason which is not known to us. I know it is quite heart wrenching when we hear about not so good. As she began, Maitri began with a positive note about people wanting to be happy and then living a happy life. I think that's what matters. So let's continue to look towards positivity. There is light at the end of every tunnel. We are in the tunnel and there is definitely light there. let's cross the tunnel, together, and then happily our prayers are with you. Thanking each one of you from Women Educators. Yeah, and have a good
Thank you.
weekend.
Thank you so
For
much.
your time. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Meera Mathurji, thank you so much. She's such a senior educator who has joined us. We would love to have you on our show sometime later, Neera Mathurji. Thank you. Thank you so much.